Hi, I'm Daniel Ortiz, and welcome to Music 101. Music 101 is created to empower music itself and legendary icons in the music industry. And of course, my partner in crime, Mr. Meek, the Dr. Digital.
That's right, the partner in musical crime.
We are empowering music itself, people. And Mr. Meek, how's your Halloween?
Halloween was very interesting, and it's a very interesting because I'm in a different state. I'm in Arizona, so I've experienced Halloween where I grew up in New Jersey. It was very different. California and Pennsylvania, and also Arizona.
So, what's the big difference, Mr. Mick? The
I think
Halloween from
it's
every state.
I think it's also a difference in age and when. So I think it's more of over time. So when I was a kid, Halloween was really a big festival and a big holiday. And I think with fewer kids and the changes, and also I think the culture is different. So it's a little bit more scary. It's a little bit more bizarre than it used to be. So I think that's the big change. In Arizona, it's a little bit different because it's a Western area. So we have the Western holidays, and that's a little different too. So we got cowboys and ranchers and all kinds of folks like that.
Yes. Here in Canada, they are more celebrating Halloween than Christmas because every
Okay.
time I observe, every house they decorating Halloween, but in Christmas, not that much.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yes. So,
Interesting.
Mr. Mick,
Yes.
in celebration of Halloween's, what are the Halloween theme songs in the 1980s?
Well, you're going to go from the 80s. So, what we're going to do is talk about the 80s and also say all the important songs during that period of time, or at least a few. So, what I have are some things in mind and some things I wanted to address. So, we make sure we get to those. And then in the 1980s, what we have are songs such as a famous one because it was a famous film at that time, and that was Ghostbusters by Ray Parker Jr. So, comedy film of the same name. Song is very catchy lyrics, funky beats, that perfect beat that's funky that perfectly captures the fun and playful spirit of the movie. With its energetic chorus and memorable hook, Ghostbusters quickly became a hit and a cultural phenomenon. The song's theme of a group of supernatural investigators busting ghosts resonated with audiences, helped solidify the film's status as a beloved classic. And overall, Ghostbusters by Ray Parker Jr., a timeless track that continues to entertain and inspire listeners of all ages. So you know that phrase, there's something strange in your neighborhood. Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters.
Ghostbuster.
That's right. See, everybody knows that and remembers it. So
Yes.
there's something weird, don't look good. Who are you going to call? Ghostbuster.
Ghostbuster.
See, you know it. We can sing along. I ain't no afraid of no ghost. All right. So that's a famous song, and that's a lot of people know that one. Another one I wanted to mention was actually Good Man in a Bad Time by my favorite songwriter, which people know because I've written a book about this gentleman, Ian Hunter, from the video, and that's from the film Fright Night. And Good Man in a Bad Time is a song written and recorded by Ian Hunter. He's a former lead singer of Mott the Hoople. 1979, the song was featured in the 1985 film Fright Night, which is a horror comedy starring Chris Sarandon and Roddy McDowall. And that music video really made it famous because at the time it was heavily played on MTV, and it helped to revive Hunter's career. And the song's lyrics tell a man struggling with his darker impulses were inspired by Hunter's own experience, and it became a fan favorite and a staple of 1980s new wave and punk rock. And of course, if you want to know more about that, it's actually on page 58 of my book, which is On Track, Ian Hunter, because I wrote about it as well. Another song that, of course, from the 80s was, of course, Thriller. So, how can you have Halloween and not talk about Thriller? So, Michael Jackson's magnum opus is might seem a little obvious, but it's obvious for a reason. There's countless other artists to create their own terrifying visuals. It's arguably the music video to play when you want to add some spooky ambiance, because this is Thriller, Thriller Night, and no one's going to save you from the beast about to strike. You know it's Thriller, Thriller Night. You're fighting for your life inside a killer. Thriller Tonight. Yeah. And so we know that song was also made famous by a video as well. So it almost might be more famous than the song itself. But another classic song. Those would be some I would mention from the 1980s.
Yes, yes, yes. So, Mr. Mick, what music features in Halloween?
There's things that you could say in terms of themes, and this comes back to probably what the holiday is about in the first place. So you're going to see a lot of things such as the ghosts, and there's a lot to do with fire because this has to do with what's all those people are doing when they move into the next beyond. So you find a lot of those themes come back. So you find things about witches, you find burning, you find ghosts, you find all of those things because the idea was at Halloween these are the ghosts that are around, and all kinds of people are writing about those. And at least the songs were from probably the 1950s and 1980s. And that's really what I was trying to address in this particular episode.
Yes. So, speaking of Ian Hunter, Mr. Mick, can you please invite our listeners to support your latest book, right? Ian Hunter.
Yes, I got some other projects working on, but yes, indeed, that's the Ian Hunter. It's on track. You can find that on Amazon. So was one of those songs that actually became one of his more famous songs, mostly because it was used in the film as well. So of course he's had some hits such as Cleveland Rocks, all the way from Memphis, from Mott the Hoople, All the Young Dudes. But what we have in that particular song is that it made it more popular because of the video that goes with it. And if you look on YouTube, you're going to find a really good YouTube video that takes the movie and puts the song together. So it's a really good combination. So On Track, Ian Hunter, that's available on Amazon. So appreciate the opportunity to give a little plug there.
Yes, yes, yes. Let's support Mr. Mick because Mr. Mick is doing lots of projects. So, what are they, Mr. Mick? Can you give us a glimpse for those projects that you're doing?
Yes, so I got a book on American history, the last 100 years of American history. I've got working on a volume has to do with work-life balance, especially looking after the pandemic, which a lot of people are now thinking about their relationship to work. I've got a screenplay based on my novel, which is Burning America, also available on Amazon. And I'm working with another really important artist throughout the entire festival rock period. That's Chipmunk. And that's a person who did all the things that you can hear about with all the famous bands from the late 1950s. That is folk, jazz, rock, throughout the music festivals of the 1960s out into the 1980s. He's worked with every single major artist and is in folk music, jazz music, pop music, rock music. And no one has got a book out on him yet, but I'm hoping to get that one out as well too.
Yes, yes, yes. And Mr. Mick, thank you for sharing your talent to the world. We're looking forward for more projects. And I hope Aretha Franklin is included to your list.
Yes, that's what I know. You mentioned her as famous, so you want a little respect for Aretha. I
Yes.
get it. I understand that entirely.
Yes, yes, yes. So we did talk about the 1980s song for Halloween. How about the 1950s, Mr.
Yeah,
Mick?
1950s are pretty interesting as well. So I want to mention one. This is Screamin' Jay Hawkins in 1956. I Put a Spell on You. And this is a really interesting guy for so many ways. This is a classic and iconic song, transcends genres and time periods. Hawkins's powerful vocals and distinctive delivery would set him apart from all kinds of rock songs of that era or pop songs. And the song convey a sense of obsession and possessiveness, and Hawkins is proclaiming his desire to put a spell on the object of his affections. Long before nose rings were popular, I kid you not, there was Screamin' Jay Hawkins. And I'll just say that Hawkins's live performances were very dramatic and remind me of another guy I might mention, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, in the 1960s. But I Put a Spell on You, the song's haunting melody and intense vocals have made it a favorite among audiences and musicians alike. It's been covered numerous times by artists such as Nina Simone, Annie Lennox, and of course, one of my favorites at the time, Creedence Clearwater Revival. And speaking of Chipmunk, who was at Woodstock and lighted it and was the voice of Woodstock, Creedence Clearwater's got a version of I Put a Spell on You, and they also played it live at Woodstock. So Hawkins' performance is a major influence on all kinds of people. So Spell on You is a powerful and evocative song, and that's going to bring out strong emotions, and in particular, a really weird performance by Screaming Jane Hawkins. I'm just going to give you a warning if you ever see a clip of him. Another one to mention is Sheb Wooley, the Purple People Eater, which he performed on the Ed Sullivan Show in 1958. It was a hit song and unusual, but also made sense for the time. It's a strange creature that comes to Earth and becomes a rock star. That became a huge hit, reached #1 on the Billboard charts, and that distinctive voice by Wooley and the song's catchy melody made it really a beloved classic, especially of the rock and roll era where they were talking about things like flying saucers and all kinds of stuff like that. Another one, speaking of how some of these themes come back time and again at Halloween, The Witch Doctor of New Orleans. That was written and recorded by American singer-songwriter David Seville in 1957. Song was released as a single, became a hit, reached the top 10 on the Billboard charts. Is a catchy tune and humorous lyrics make it a popular choice for parties and events. Song tells the story of a young man seeking advice from a witch doctor to win the heart of his crush. And the repetitive nature of the song's chorus adds to its comedic effect, making it a memorable and enjoyable listen. So it's a lighthearted, fun song. And its song's lyrics are also then became one of those sort of novelty type songs, which are pretty typical of Halloween music and culture. David Seville is also known for his work on other artists and perhaps best known for his work with the Chipmunks, which was a popular children's music that he created and produced. So it's a classic Halloween song. It's part of the holidays music and culture. One I want to mention too is Ghost Riders in the Sky by Vaughn Monroe, 1958. Really interesting, kind of classic country western song. And it tells a tale of a cowboy who has a vision of a herd of red-eyed, ghostly cattle being chased across the western sky by ghost riders. The cowboy is warned that if he does not change his ways and mend his sinful life, he will be doomed to join the ghostly riders in their eternal pursuit. The good cowboys are trying to catch the devil riding across the sky. With this haunting melody and vivid imagery, the lyrics made it a timeless classic among all kinds of music fans. And Vaughn's version is really a very deep, rich voice, commanding stage presence, and it's also been very popular with all kinds of other folks in the American West and other country artists because there's all kinds of people who have recorded versions of the song. It's been covered numerous times. Johnny Cash, The Outlaws, Marty Robbins, Peggy Lee, Burl Ives, Frankie Lane, Bing Crosby, Gene Autry, Debbie Harry, formerly then of Blondie, Tom Jones, Elvis Presley, Willie Nelson, the Blues Brothers, Concrete Blonde, Dick Dale, and the Shadows. And there's even a group named Riders in the Sky, named after the song. And also Dean Martin recorded that. So it's various genres, country, rock, pop, and even metal shows that song's wide appeal and adaptability. Another song to mention, Love Potion #9. This
Oh, I
tells a
love that.
story. That song is a great song, right? So if you've ever heard it, so you remember it. He visits a gypsy to obtain a love potion after being unlucky in love. And this is a potion that labeled Love Notion Potion #9, series of comical and unexpected consequences, ultimately leading to the man falling in love, except he falls in love with everything else as well. So it's a theme of love and attraction, but the unpredictable nature of romantic relationships. And if you know the song, it was a big hit in 1959. It was written by Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller, who, of course, famous songwriting duo, wrote many of the hits for Elvis Presley as well. This song went to #23, and it was recorded in 1964 by the Searchers, another big hit. Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass did an instrumental version on a 1965 album, Whipped Cream and Other Delights. Now, if you ever see the cover of that particular album, as I did in 1965, I can't forget it. And a lot of people didn't. It was a little bit racy for that period of time. So also recorded by the Coasters, big hit for them. And also another track was released in 77. So if you know the lyrics, you ever heard of them, this is the song. It said, I took my troubles down to Madame Rue. You know, that gypsy with the gold capped tooth. She's got a pad down on 34th and Vine selling little bottles of Love Potion #9. I
#9.
told her that I was a flop with chicks. I've been this way since 1956. She looked at my palm and she made a magic sign. She said, what you need is Love Potion #9. She bent down and turned around and gave me a wink. She said, I'm going to make it right here in the sink. It smelled like turpentine. It looked like India ink. I held my nose. I closed my eyes. I took a drink. I didn't know if it was day or night. I started kissing everything in sight. But when I
Mm.
kissed a cop down on 34th and Vine, he broke my little bottle of Love Potion number
Number
9.
nine.
He not only got a little bit more than he had bargained for. So those are some of the songs from the 1950s, and they're kind of humorous and novelty songs, but really set the genre of Halloween and Halloween themed songs. So that's it from the 1950s.
Yes, thank you, 1950s. They are so awesome, and until now, they are well known. And I hope our generation will continue to support this kind of music.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mick, if we compare the 1950s to the 1980s Halloween theme, what is the big difference?
Yeah, I think it's what I had said earlier. I see some of the cultural differences. So in the 1950s, it seemed like, okay, it's kind of like good fun and they're novelty songs. I could say that about songs maybe in the 1960s, but there's probably a little bit more darker. I mean, I guess Ghostbusters is kind of fun, but there's a little bit more a darker image, I think, that has come out in pop music and rock music and soul music so in the 1960s and 1980s. I think there's some differences there as well too. So where you might have had more fun and novelty early on, that's a little bit darker, and I think that kind of reflects the changes in the culture as well.
Yes. So let's talk about the 1960s. What can you say about it?
Yeah, like if there's one song that I would say almost becomes the song, the Halloween song of the 1960s, this has got to be Monster Mash by Bobby Boris Pickett. That was released in 1962, and every single year it comes back because in 1962 it's been around. So it tells the story of a mad scientist who creates a monster that ultimately ends up throwing a party known as the Monster Mash. This is a catchy tune. It's paired with Pickett's deep vocals and the spooky sound effects create a fun and festive atmosphere. It's perfect for any Halloween celebration. It stood a test of time. It's become a staple in popular culture, and the playful lyrics and that upbeat tempo make it a favorite among both children and adults during the Halloween season. Halloween season. Success of Monster Mash is a testament to Pickett's creativity and talent, and it's a beloved Halloween anthem that brings joy and excitement to all. So this particular thing is also so important because it shows how music will come back, and there's a holiday theme, especially at holiday. That song has returned to the Billboard Hot 100 actually the last 3 years ahead of the holiday. So every year, people are making money with this. Billboard estimated last year that a hit could generate $1 million in annual combined revenue. So that's quite a tale to be told every single year from 1962 on. The song has really, in terms of money, tripled from 2019 to 2023. It's gotten more important. And every single year in 2023, for example, we'll see what happens in 2024. It comes back. And that one song, Bobby Boris Pickett and the Crypt Kickers, Monster Mash, has shown how that song comes back again and again. And it tells you something about Halloween or Halloween music and holiday music, just like Christmas, because this, according to one of the sources I found, Halloween today is an $11.6 billion business. That's B
Wow.
a business. That's a lot of money. So Halloween, just like Christmas, there are those songs that come back. And if there's no other song, that's the one that you'll think it's Monster Mash. So that's one that should be mentioned. Another 63, there's a comedian, Alan Sherman, who released creepy, eerie, spooky, scary, haunting Halloween song. And so he's known most famously for his hit song, Hello Mutta, Hello Fata. That's a humorous song about a camper's disappointing summer camp experience. But since he wrote joke songs or novelty songs such as My Son the Folk Singer, My Son the Celebrity, parodied traditional folk music and Jewish culture, but he also wrote something at Halloween as well. If we're talking about the 60s and in television as well, the connection, how about the Addams Family theme? That was
Oh,
recorded and
wow.
released 1964. So, yes, that
Classic.
tied with the series, The Addams Family, that premiered on ABC in September of 1964. That was written by Vic Mizzy. He's a well known television and film composer who wrote both the music and the lyrics. And everybody knows it because of the finger snapping opening and the simple yet catchy lyrics. They're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky. They're all
Yes.
together ooky. The Addams Family. Their house is a museum where people come to see them. They really are a scream. The Addams Family. Neat, sweet, petite. So get a witch's shawl. On a broomstick you can crawl, and we're all going to pay a call on the Addams Families.
Family.
Now, if you're talking about the novelty songs and television, that's that not all. There's the Munsters theme song, which also recorded and released in 1964, along with the TV show. So that was composed by Jack Marshall and Bob Mosher. That debuted also September 1964, and it's a surf rock instrumental, which also reflects some of the popular music trends of the early 1960s. First heard in 1964, and that also has become instantly iconic and recognizable, often associated with the comedy horror genre. So both of these tunes released 1964 and memorable themes that have stayed with people all this time. 66 also, I should mention, Season of the Witch by Donovan. So he was well known and part of the British invasion. It's a psychedelic folk song that explores those themes of change, transformation, and the cyclic nature of how things have changed over the years. So it's a thought provoking and visually evocative song. You've got to pick up every stitch. You've got to pick up every stitch. Must be the season of the witch. So along those
Abracadabra.
themes, yeah, along those themes, also we should mention the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Of course, this is Voodoo Child, Slight Return, that came from his 67 album Electric Ladyland. So not a traditional witch doctor song, but originally this was an epic 17-minute jam that features lyrics that delve into the themes of voodoo and African mysticism. The poetic lyrics explore the idea of a voodoo child born with a special connection to the spiritual realm, and the song's music is a sonic representation of this musical connection. So, one of those most memorable songs, and I mentioned too, I Put a Spell on You by Screamin' Jay Hawkins. Same thing, CCR about that time also released their version. All these songs, of course, in some ways remind me of that crazy wild of Arthur Brown, another guy that was very unusual, had a unique blend of psychedelic rock, progressive rock, and theatricality. Most famous song is undoubtedly Fire, which was released in 1968, became a huge hit, reaching #1 on the UK singles charts. It's a poetic and surreal exploration of the theme of fire, so appropriate for Halloween, of course. And that opening features Brown's wailing vocals and the sound of a burning pyre. It's become one of the most recognizable and influential openings and sections in rock music. So, first line, I kid you not, I am the god of hellfire, and I bring
I'm
you
the gun.
fire.
Oh,
So,
wow.
it's very dramatic. And along these lines, you could see it's a lot of having to do with fire and witches and black magic. So, speaking of black magic, of course, there's Black Magic Woman by Fleetwood Mac, 1968, and also Santana, 1968. Originally written and produced and recorded by Fleetwood Mac in 1968. However, it may be even more associated with Santana because they played it at the original Woodstock Festival in 1969. It really broke them through. People started to see, like, okay, you can get new music from festivals, which was a new idea during that period of time. And it actually broke Santana because they played it on the second day of the festival and they were relatively unknown. And in fact, their debut album hadn't even been released yet. But because of their appearance at Woodstock and because of their unique rendition, that really broke them into the mainstream of rock. So it's a cover version, but almost maybe more important than the original by Fleetwood Mac. Another song I want to mention is Darkness, Darkness, written by Jesse Colin Young, recorded by the Youngbloods in 1969. That reached number 25 in the Billboard 100 chart. And it's a very introspective exploration of the human condition. Folk rock instrumentation, very haunting quality guitar, made it a popular riff from the 1960s and throughout the 1970s. And there's a theory that he wrote the tune for the GIs in Vietnam to help them get peaceful sleep. So it is kind of a dark song, but appropriate for Halloween. So, darkness, darkness, be my pillow. Take my hand and let me sleep. In the coolness of your shadow, in the silence of your deep. Hide my yearning for the things I cannot be. Keep my mind from constant turning toward the things I cannot see. Long and lonesome, ease the day that brings me pain. I have felt the edge of sadness. I have known the depth of fears. I mean, this is really getting deep. And I like this song too, because again, speaking of the Ian Hunter, he also was recorded by his original band, Mott the Hoople. And it's Darkness Darker was released in 1972. It's a single and included on their album Brain Capers. And Ian Hunter brings a rock and distinctive vocal to this song. It's a new interpretation of it. So, and speaking of the 60s, whole bunch of songs I think are really important to mention, and that's about the 1970s, 1960s, leading into the 1970s.
Yes. Thank you so much. Halloween theme song of the 1960s. So rich. And I hope our generations will continue doing those songs. So 1970s, Mr. Nick.
Sure, there's some things that should be mentioned. And again, I would say there's where sort of, as I said, there's sort of a darker tone in some ways. I think you start to see this in the 1970s. It's a band actually that I had seen with the Mott the Hoople. This is Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Reaper. That's a classic rock song released in 1976. There's a steady, haunting melody that's complemented by the iconic guitar riff and lead vocals by frontman Eric Bloom. The lyrics of the song speak about the inevitability of death and the idea that we should not fear it, but rather accept it as a natural part of life. And the message is highlighted by that repeated line, don't fear the reaper, throughout the song, encouraging listeners to approach the concept of death with a sense of acceptance and peace. And one of the most notable aspects of Don't Fear the Reaper is its use of symbolism and imagery. The lyrics reference 40,000 men and women every day who meet their end, painting a vivid picture of mortality and the cyclical nature of life and death. Song also makes reference to the story of Romeo and Juliet, suggesting that their tragic love story serves as a reminder of the inevitability of death for all beings. This use of literary references and imagery adds depth and complexity to the song, inviting listeners to contemplate the deeper meaning behind the lyrics. So don't fear the reaper. And that also reminds me of some other songs that you could say that are very much in the Hollywood theme, and that's Frankenstein. So at Halloween, definitely this fits in.
Frankenstein.
1972, Edgar Winter Group, Frankenstein. So this was a fusion of rock, jazz, and blues. And I'll add a little personal mention on this. I was working during that period of time at a drive-in dairy. And when this song came on, there's a really weird and strange part that sounds like a flying saucer. So everybody at the dairy would turn that thing up, and all the customers would come in and they'd look around and go, what is that? We just pretend there was nothing wrong or nothing different about it, but it sounded like a little flying saucer was coming down the land, and we just pretended we didn't think
Nothing.
anything of it. So Frankenstein, it's Edgar Winter. Very interesting track. There's about a 9-minute version that you can catch on YouTube. And this guy's right. He's playing the saxophone. He's playing a keyboard instrument. He plays the drums. Very talented musician. So this, of course, is based on the classic novel written by Mary Shelley in 1818. Tells the story of the scientist Victor Frankenstein, who creates a monstrous creature in his laboratory. And that novel explores the themes of ambition, responsibility, and the consequences of trying to play God. And that's what you see with Frankenstein. So very brilliant, very interesting, and a new take on a classic tale. So along these lines, since we want to see what sort of things can be done in the 1970s, Werewolves of London by Warren Zevon. So classic rock anthem. It's become a staple. It's part of his album Excitable Boy. Catchy lyrics, upbeat tempo, and that distinctive howling sound that plays in that particular song that captivates listeners for decades. And it tells something about Zevon's unique storytelling ability and his knack for creating vivid imagery, because he describes encounters with werewolves roaming the streets of London. I saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand walking through the streets of Soho in the rain. He was looking for a place called Lee Ho Fook's, going to get a big dish of beef chow mein. Now, I can't do it, but that's where his AU comes in. AU, Werewolves of London. So if you hear him howling around your kitchen door, you better not let him in. Little old lady got mutilated late last night. Werewolves of London. He's the hairy-handed gent who ran amok in Kent. Lately, he's been overheard in Mayfair. You better stay away from him. He'll rip your lungs out, Jim. Ah, I'd like to meet his tailor. Well, I saw Lon Chaney walking with the Queen, doing the Werewolves of London. I saw Lon Chaney walking with the Queen, doing the Werewolves of London. I saw a werewolf drinking a pina colada at Trader Vic's, and his hair was perfect. So I can't do the ahs, but if you hear the song, you would remember it. So it's a tongue-in-cheek tribute to the horror genre with lyrics that playfully depicts the mayhem caused by the werewolves as they prowl the city streets. Got clever wordplay and that infectious chorus make the song both entertaining and memorable, earning it a permanent place in the pantheon of classic rock hits. So the song's upbeat tempo and catchy melody make it a favorite. And Werewolves of London to showcasing Warren Zevon as his talent as a songwriter and performer. And it combines seamlessly elements of rock, humor, and horror. That song's irreverent humor and catchy hooks make it a timeless classic. And that's one thing that you can tell about another good songwriter, Warren Zevon, that comes out in that song. Also should mention Dr. John, the legendary New Orleans musician. And just being from New Orleans, a number of his songs really could be related to Halloween. I'm going to just mention one, I Walk on Gilded Splinters. That's from his 1972 album, Gree, which features Dr. John's signature blend of voodoo-inspired rhythms and bluesy vocals, make it a perfect fit for Halloween. So the tune is a mesmerizing and an enigmatic song that captivates lyrics with its haunting lyrics and unique blend of musical styles. Dr. John, who of course is also known as the Night Tripper, combines elements of voodoo, blues, and psychedelic rock to create a sound that is both gritty and intoxicating. The lyrics of the song speak of magical rituals and dark imagery, offering a glimpse of the mysterious world of New Orleans hoodoo culture. Dr. John's gritty vocals and intricate instrumentation create a tense tension and intrigue that draws the listeners in, keeps them hooked to the very end. So, number of songs that could be mentioned from Dr. John. Not only that, I Walk on Gilded Splinters, but Black Widow Spider, Dance Kalinda Boom Boom, and Revolution. Just a few number of the songs, kind of wrapping up in the 1970s. But Dr. John has got elements of voodoo, mysticism, and that fabulous New Orleans culture, making it great fit for Halloween.
Yes, 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 indeed. 1970s. Thank you so much. Especially to Frankenstein. The
Yeah.
most famous one. So, Mr. Mick, what is the connection between All Souls Day and
Yeah,
Halloween?
that's a good question because while we're talking about Halloween, what's it really supposed to be? Well, it's All Souls Days, which is celebrated on November 2nd. It's a significant feast day in the Roman Catholic Church with honoring the souls of the deceased who are believed to be in purgatory. So when we have these songs having to do with fire and things like that, well, this is what's supposed to happen in purgatory. So that is a state where the souls of the deceased undergo purification and cleansing from sin, allowing them to ultimately enter heaven. So on All Souls Day, Catholics and other Christians pray for the souls, asking for their speedy release from purgatory and entry into heaven. So the feast day is seen as a time to remember and honor the deceased and offer prayers and sacrifices for their souls. So you see how this becomes sort of a secular holiday, and people dress up and they have all kinds of things supposedly like the souls who have gone beyond and they're still coming back to visit. So there's a lot about ghosts and things like that during the Halloween season. So it's rooted in the medieval Christian tradition, the Middle Ages. The church established a number of festivals and feasts to honor the dead, and this is including All Souls Day. And they were often celebrated with processions, prayers, and offerings for the souls of the deceased. So today, while the connection between All Souls Day and Halloween is not as explicit as it once was, two festivals still share some commonalities. Both festivals are associated with the supernatural, the afterlife, and honoring of the dead. In many Catholic countries, All Souls Day is still celebrated with traditional foods, decorations, and prayers. So while Halloween has become more of a secular celebration with a focus on costumes, trick-or-treating, or other festivities, and despite the differences, there's some underlying themes of remembrance, reverence, and connection with the dead. That's a common thread between the two festivals. And I think that helps to understand and put in context what we're supposed to be doing at Halloween based on some of these earlier practices historically.
Very well said. Mr. Mick, very well said. Yes, people. Halloween is a spooky and enchanting holiday that conjures up images of witches, ghosts, and goblins. So listen to one of those music that Mr. Meek uh, discussed, 1970s, 60s, 80s. They are awesome, awesome, awesome. So, Mr. Mick, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Partner in crime. Had a lot of
Partner
fun.
in crime. And please do listen to my other podcast, Book 101 Review, on my fourth season, my featured author of the month of November. He's award winning and best selling author, Mr. Gerald Everett Jones. So please do listen. Book 101 Review. More to come, people. See you soon.
Day is full.
And please tune in, Mr. Mick, on my love letters.
Oh, Love, love, love.
Love, love, love. So, Mr.
All
Mick,
right.
thank you
Yes.
so much. Another
You bet.